What would you choose, family legacy or the love that makes you feel alive? In today's story, Toan, the heir to a powerful empire, faces his mother's harsh ultimatum: abandon Diem, a resilient single mother from a humble background, or risk his future and the family's fortune. Torn between duty and desire, Toan stands at a painful crossroad. Will he sacrifice his heart for the expectations of his lineage? Don't miss this emotional journey of love, status, and self-discovery. Subscribe to our channel now and follow Toan's impossible choice that could change everything. The afternoon sun filtered gently through the tall, glass windows of the family mansion, casting a golden hue over the marble floors. Toan stood silently in the grand living room, his gaze fixed on the intricate patterns beneath his feet, as his mother's commanding yet composed voice broke the heavy air between them. She had called him for a private conversation, a conversation he had been anticipating but not prepared to face. His mother, a woman of poise and sharp perception, sat regally on the leather armchair, her posture straight, her eyes piercing yet controlled. Years of running the family business and upholding their legacy had shaped her into a person who rarely wavered in her judgments. She clasped her hands together, her expression calm but decisive. "Toan," she began, her voice firm but not without a trace of concern, "you and that woman, Diem, it's time we discuss what this connection of yours truly means." Toan raised his eyes slightly, hesitant, unsure whether to speak or to simply listen. She didn't wait for his reply. "I don't deny that Diem is a good person," she continued, "and I can see that she's been through a lot. But kindness, Toan, is not enough. She is a mother already, with a child that isn't yours. Her circumstances, her background, they don't match who we are, nor the future you're meant to build." She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in, studying the faint flicker of emotion that crossed her son's face. But there was no sign of rebellion in his eyes, only a quiet sadness, a conflict he wasn't yet ready to confront. "You deserve a woman who can walk beside you, not someone whose burdens will weigh you down," she pressed on, her tone unwavering. "You have a responsibility, not just to this family, but to the legacy your father left behind. Every hour you spend around Diem is another hour you're delaying that responsibility. You're blurring the line between affection and duty, between compassion and love. And I cannot sit by and let you throw your potential away for a connection that was never meant to be more than friendship." Toan's fists clenched at his sides, his lips parted as if he wanted to argue, to defend the woman who had slowly found a place in his heart. But he knew his mother, she was not someone easily swayed by feelings, especially when it came to her only son's future. She was speaking from a place of calculation, of a world where alliances were built on status, where marriages were arranged to fortify power, not to soothe a lonely heart. Still, Toan couldn't ignore the warmth he felt when he thought of Diem, the softness in her eyes when she smiled, the resilience she carried despite the scars of her past. He had witnessed her struggles, admired her strength, and perhaps, somewhere along the way, he had let himself hope for more than just friendship. Yet here he was, standing between the rigid expectations of his family and the fragile stirrings of his own heart. His mother rose gracefully from her chair, stepping closer. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice lowering to something almost gentle. "Think about it, Toan. Don't let pity or fleeting affection dictate the rest of your life. Choose wisely, for yourself, for your family." As she walked away, her heels echoing softly against the marble, Toan remained frozen. The room grew quieter, but inside his mind, the noise was deafening. She paused at the threshold, but without turning back, she added, "Toan, do you know why I'm being this strict with you? Because I cannot let my only son get trapped in a life that isn't meant for him. Diem may have her own virtues, but she also has her own baggage, a child, a broken family, a background that barely aligns with the name you carry. You're meant to lead, to expand what your father built. Yet here you are, tangled in a bond that limits you, blinds you to better possibilities." Her voice was neither bitter nor cruel, it was the voice of a woman who had seen the harsh calculations of life, who understood that love was never enough in the world they lived in. Toan remained still, shoulders heavy, his heart battling between instinct and upbringing. He wanted to shout that Diem wasn't just baggage, that her son was a child he had learned to care for, to see as innocent and deserving of a family. But the words wouldn't leave his throat. His silence became her validation. His mother turned slightly, just enough to let her final words pierce deeper. "I've arranged introductions for you. There are women from families of proper standing, educated, sophisticated, raised to understand a life of leadership. They don't carry pasts that will shadow your future. Don't you think it's time you stopped clinging to this misplaced loyalty? She is not the woman to walk alongside you at the company's helm. She cannot share your weight. And deep down, you know that." Toan's fists tightened. He wasn't blind to reality. He knew Diem came with scars. He knew she didn't belong in the circles of wealth and influence his mother navigated so effortlessly. But he also remembered the nights Diem stayed up late helping her son with homework, the mornings she faced with quiet resilience despite the fatigue that dulled her eyes. She carried her past not as a burden, but as a testament to her strength. How could he just turn away? Yet, his mother's voice echoed like a relentless drumbeat. "You're not just a man, Toan. You are my son, the heir of a legacy. And I won't let you trade that for an affection that will fade, or a responsibility that isn't yours to carry." Her footsteps retreated, leaving Toan swallowed in the cold quiet of the hall. The soft hum of distant conversations, the occasional chime of the grandfather clock, everything seemed to grow distant. He remained there, his mind warring between duty and desire, between the image of a family built from legacy and the simple, quiet joy he had felt beside Diem. His mother had drawn the line with unwavering finality. She saw Diem as a detour, a misstep in the grand plan of his life. And maybe she was right. Maybe there was truth in her words that he couldn't deny. But standing there, with the weight of her expectations pressing on his shoulders, Toan realized that choosing his future would never be as simple as obeying or defying. It was a storm he would have to weather alone, between the empire that awaited him and the woman whose presence made him forget, even briefly, that he was born for anything else. ChatGPT said. For a long while, Toan stood motionless in the center of that grand hall, the echoes of his mother's footsteps still lingering in his mind. The weight of her words pressed down on him like an invisible hand, gripping his chest tighter with every breath he took. Outside the tall windows, the garden stretched wide and immaculate, a symbol of the order and control his mother demanded not just of their home, but of his life. Yet, amid that manicured perfection, he saw only the image of Diem, her gentle eyes, her unpolished laughter, the quiet strength she carried when life offered her nothing but hardship. Toan's heart ached with a tension he couldn't easily name. His mother had spoken with the cold clarity of a seasoned strategist, drawing clear lines between who was worthy and who was not. She wanted him to choose legacy over affection, status over sincerity. And perhaps, in her eyes, she was right. Diem was not born into privilege, nor did she carry the shine of a pedigree name. She was a mother first, a woman who had weathered life's cruelty alone, her hands calloused by work, her spirit shaped by sacrifice. But wasn't that precisely what made her remarkable? He could still recall the way Diem had smiled at her son, even when exhaustion lined her face, when the burden of a single mother seemed almost unbearable. She never asked for help. She stood firm, even when the world around her tried to bend her will. Toan had watched her from the sidelines, at first with curiosity, then with admiration, and finally, with something deeper, something his mother would never understand. Yet, what future did that admiration promise? His mother was right in one thing, being by Diem's side meant inheriting a life with complexities he wasn't born into. It meant defending her against whispers in every social circle, standing tall in boardrooms where her presence would be questioned, where she would never quite fit. Was he strong enough to bear that? Or would he, too, eventually resent her for what she wasn't? The questions twisted painfully inside him. Every path seemed laced with sacrifice. If he chose Diem, he risked his inheritance, his mother's respect, and perhaps even his own place in the family's empire. If he let her go, he would keep his crown, but at what cost? Would his nights be quieter? Would his heart be lighter? Or would he forever carry the hollow regret of abandoning the one person who made him feel human beneath all the expectations? A soft breeze rustled through the slightly ajar window, carrying the faint scent of the garden's blossoms. It reminded him of simpler moments, of Diem's modest home where laughter echoed between plain walls, where her son's innocent voice called him Uncle Toan with a joy that no inheritance could replicate. He exhaled slowly, knowing that whatever choice he made, it would redefine him. Not as the heir his mother had raised, but as the man he was still learning to become. For now, he couldn't walk away, not yet. His heart wouldn't let him. He needed to see Diem, to feel again the quiet certainty her presence gave him. Maybe then he would find his answer. Maybe then he would know whether to defy the legacy he was born into or to surrender to it, leaving behind the woman who had taught him how to feel more than duty. But until that moment came, Toan remained there, staring out into the horizon, caught between a future he was expected to fulfill and a love he wasn't sure he was allowed to keep.
Hello, xin chào tất cả mọi người. Vậy là tập phim ngày hôm nay của kênh Lý Tu Diem Review đã kết thúc tại đây. Hôm nay kênh đã phát sóng một tập mới có nội dung rất là hấp dẫn và có một tình tiết mới, đó chính là mẹ của siêu Toan không chấp nhận Lý Tu Diem. Liệu rằng tình yêu của Toan và Diễm có vượt qua nổi cơn sóng gió này không? Diễm có thuyết phục